What makes a season of anime great? For me, at least the best seasons function like a story within a story, finishing character and thematic progressions and adding new ones. The third season of Haikyuu is a perfect example of the potential for a season of anime. Today, I want to dive into the aspects of this season and try to locate what makes it so damn good. And spoiler warning for up to the first half of Season 4 of the anime. For a quick recap, Haikyuu is a volleyball anime about good boys playing sports and focuses on Hinata Shoyo, a 5'3" first year at Kurasuno High whose dream is to be the next tiny giant. A small volleyball player who can stand up to taller players on the court. As a high school player, Hinata's goal alongside all of his teammates is to make it to nationals, to bring their school Kurasuno back as a powerhouse and show off their individual talents. So season 3 of the series is their match with Shiratorizawa, the current powerhouse of the prefecture, and the winner of the match is off to nationals. This match in the series is set up perfectly by the finale of both season 1 and 2. At the end of Season 1, Kurasuno is handed their first loss in a tournament by Aoba. Early in the series, Aoba is set up to be a rival school, with Oikawa as the main antagonist. And at the end of the first season, Aoba is able to beat Kurasuno, setting up Kurasuno to truly become a strong team and build themselves back up, leading into the climax of Season 2, where Kurasuno is able to beat Aoba and get revenge. Even though the main antagonist for the first two seasons has been Oikawa, at the end of the match, there is still this overwhelming feeling that Kurasuno still has a long way to go if they are going to reach their goal of making it to nationals, and Shiratorizawa and Ushijima are the perfect obstacle for Kurasuno to overcome and transform into a complete team. For Kurasuno, Aoba wasn't as much the foil to their team as it was a reflection of who their best player needed to become. Hinata and Kageyama fit each other's playing style perfectly, but for Kageyama, he struggles to give himself up to the rest of the team to match 100% of their potential. That is the one thing that holds Kurasuno back from competing at the highest level, getting Kageyama to match every spiker on the team. Hinata also has some growth in the way of being able to make his own decisions on the court and not solely relying on Kageyama to place the ball perfectly. In their match with Aoba, Kageyama develops into a setter that gives himself to his spikers, something that pays off against Shiratorizawa. Each match in the story typically focuses on a few players for Kurasuno realizing their potential, or at least attempting to. And at the start of the match, this is the exact role that Tsukishima fills. Tsuki is the only player in the starting lineup that has yet to totally fit into their role on the team. Tsuki has never truly given himself to the sport of volleyball. If Kurasuno is ever going to stand up to a team like Shiratorizawa or be able to compete at nationals, they need to have Tsuki find his passion for the game, and the first half of the season builds to that moment for Tsuki with the block. The structure of the season can be split up into two halves, pre and post block. Before the block happens, the story focuses on showing us just how strong Shiratorizawa is and lays the groundwork for the valley of difference in their abilities. It also sets the stage for the philosophical differences in each of the players and the teams as a whole. Each character on Shiratorizawa represents an opposite ideology from that of a Kurasuno player. The first thing that we hear to start the third season is Hinata saying, "There is an enormous wall in front of me." At the start of the series, Hinata couldn't get a spike through the wall of blockers, but at the start of Season 3, that wall has turned into Shiratorizawa and the prodigy Ushijima. And so the first 4 episodes are a setup to the rest of the match and the conclusion to the longest payoff for a character arc in the series with Tsuki. The first episode starts with a lot of excitement for the fact that Karasuno has made it this far at all, with most of the episode having a pretty light atmosphere until Karasuno steps on the court and the nerves start to settle in because none of them have ever played on this big of a stage before. Then, just before the halfway point of the episode, as the tension is starting to build, we get this shot of Shiratorizawa entering the court, with Karasuno framed at their feet. This is such an easy and brilliant way of introducing the audience to Shiratorizawa to show just how much their skill and experience dwarfs Karasuno's. Then, as they go through warm-ups, we start to get hints of the dynamic of the opposing team, and to end the episode, we are left on a nervous note, because Ushijima scores easily, as Nishinoya is unable to receive his spike, highlighting just the threat that Ushijima presents. Then episodes 2 and 3 introduce and focus on the 2 biggest hurdles that Karasuno is going to have to overcome, Ushijima and Tendo. The first episode uses anticipation to build up just how towering Shiratorizawa is, and the second episode they build on that to focus on the difficulty of Ushijima and his left-handed spikes. We see the conflict between Ushijima and Hinata start to rise when Hinata gets in his first good hit, and Ushijima, who rarely receives, is forced to dig up the ball, showing just how much Hinata gets under his skin, something that will be developed further down the line. This emotional battle between Hinata and Ushijima also helps Tsuki and his development, showing his perceptiveness and intelligence on the court. The end of the second episode gives us a beautiful misdirection, when everything is coming down to the wire, with Hinata and Ushijima locked in. Tendo, the middle blocker for Shiratorizawa, makes his presence known with his stunning block on Hinata. Episode 3 then focuses on the guest blocker, Tendo, and shows that Shiratorizawa has more to offer than just Ushijima. Tendo is a monster on the court. With great physical ability and instincts, his guest blocking is flashy, but also at a high risk. Tendo also gets a different kind of pleasure out of the game than many others do, sitting in stark contrast to Tsuki. Tsuki read blocks and is calculated in everything that he does, while Tendo runs off of pure intuition and the satisfaction that comes with shutting down a spiker. And the philosophical conflict between Tendo and Tsuki comes to a head at the 4th episode and first climax of the season. Even though Karasuno got beaten easily in the first set, now with their nerves under control, the second set seems to be within reach, and the mood at the start of the 4th episode is pretty uplifting, with Tsuki starting to take more of a leadership role on the court. As the set goes into deuce, fatigue starts to set in for both sides as they go back and forth. Even though Tendo's guest blocking has been working, Tsuki is observing everything around him, and he starts to notice something. The conflict between Hinata and Ushijima could lead to a mistake. A mistake by Shiratorizawa's setter, Shirabu. Hinata keeps pushing pressure on the front of Shiratorizawa, and because of that, Ushijima wants the ball more and more, and he can handle it too. But Tsuki sees that Shirabu might not be able to. Even though Shirabu is a very good setter, he is actually less talented than the backup Ieto, but his willingness to fade into the background and set to Ushijima no matter what is what keeps Shirabu on the court. His slight lack of skill leads to a mistake, a mistake fueled by Hinata and Ushijima's conflict and Tsuki's perseverance, resulting in the block. This moment hits so hard because we have been waiting for Tsuki to find his passion for the game in the same way Tsuki has been waiting for this mistake. And this emotional character moment clashes with the plot of the series, making every audience member jump out of their seats and cheering as Karasuno evens up the match at 1 set apiece. And with Tsuki's found passion for the game, Karasuno feels like they have a real chance to win this. The first 4 episodes do a great job of fulfilling a long character arc with Tsuki and setting up the many avenues and emotional conflicts of the match that are going to be paid off in the latter half of the season. The main conflict being the different ideologies that both teams employ. Karasuno is literally the embodiment of the little guy. They had the tiny giant years ago, and now they have Hinata, who wants to fill that role. They haven't been a powerhouse team in years, but they do have a lot of solid players, but none that were outstanding on their own right until Kageyama joined the school. Their 2 best positions are setter and libero, both support positions to help the spikers keep firing away. Karasuno as a team values teamwork and strategy to overcome the lack of overwhelming power that they have. Shiratorizawa, on the other hand, focuses on raw talent to score points, building around a star player, and making sure that every other player on the roster uses their abilities to be in service of Ushijima. The lesson we learned earlier in Haikyuu is that the best team of 6 wins, and the team of 6 that Shiratorizawa puts forth is meant to completely maximize their best player. These 2 philosophies are nothing new to sports, and there is actually a prime example of these philosophies playing out in the NBA. In the 2013 and 2014 NBA Finals, we saw the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs face off twice, with the Heat winning in 2013 and the Spurs winning in 2014. The Heat were built to utilize LeBron to his fullest potential along with Dwayne Wade. They had overwhelming talent at 3 positions and had support players to help lift them up as best they could. The Spurs, on the other hand, had talent on their roster, but all of their best players were either past their prime or before it, unlike the Heat. The Spurs didn't have the overwhelming talent that the Heat did, but they played perfectly as a team, with every player out there trying to maximize the talent around them. The Heat were Shiratorizawa and the Spurs Karasuno, and they each won a series in the 2 that they played, showing how equal these strategies are. And we see that play out throughout the course of the season, with the match going to the 5th set. Quickly, I want to discuss the many contrasting character philosophies throughout the match. Firstly, you would think that the opposite to Ushijima would actually be Kageyama and not Hinata from a volleyball perspective because of his technical ability and overall talent. It is no secret that Kageyama is the most accomplished and talented player for Karasuno at this point in the story, and that is confirmed at the end of the season when Kageyama is invited to the All Japan camp, showing that he is on a similar level to that of Ushijima, even if he does have less overall experience. Nishinoya is also shown to be a nice counterpoint to Ushijima because he can reliably receive his spikes after the first set of the match. But these contrasting skill sets are all strictly volleyball, and Hinata becomes the main counterpoint to Ushijima because of his mental state. Ushijima is stable, and Hinata provokes chaos, which deepens the tension in the match. Hinata represents everything that Ushijima is opposed to. Hinata is a player with one of the most unique skill sets in the series, and he can only be effective when Kageyama is on the court. which helps him reach heights that wouldn't be possible with his current skill set. But Ushijima is what you could look at as being almost the perfect spiker. He has good height and perfect fundamentals, mixed with his relentless ability to keep going, which has made him earn the right to be the best player on the court at almost all times. And Hinata, even with his amazing ability when Kageyama is on the court, hasn't actually done anything to show that he should be taken seriously. We, as the audience, know the amount of hard work he puts in and the drive he has to win, but he has still never won a tournament before, unlike Ushijima. So we have Ushijima, the main antagonist of the season, who contrasts in many different ways to that of every player on Karasuno's team, even if it isn't always stated explicitly. For Asahi, Ushijima represents the steadiness and strength of the type of ace that he wants to be. For Kageyama and Hinata, he is the level of player that they need to become, someone who always stays on the court. Daiichi needs to be the leader that Ushijima is to help move his team towards victory, and Tsuki and Nishinoya need to be able to stop him. Unlike any other match up to this point, each character on the court has a real contrast with who Ushijima is, making him the perfect antagonist for this particular story moment. Nationals is the goal for Karasuno. It always has been, but it never felt like it was really in reach until this match. Ushijima represents a hurdle for every character, either emotionally or physically, on their progression to becoming a worthy team of making it to Nationals. And so we have a perfect setup for every character to be opposed to Ushijima, and the monumental difference that his strength provides versus everyone else on the court. But as we know, the best team of 6 wins, which is one of the reasons how the ideological setup before the match transfers into such great action throughout the course of this season. After Tsuki's block, we finally have a more even matchup. Now that Tsuki is playing to his potential and filling a gap in the team's defense, the audience feels like there is a great chance Karasuno could win the 3rd and 4th set. But quickly we are reminded of the strength of Shiratorizawa. The 3rd set is over in the first 6 minutes of the 5th episode. It goes by so fast that you can even miss it, reinforcing that even with Tsuki playing up to his potential, Karasuno is going to have to play close to perfect in the final 2 sets if they want to overcome Shiratorizawa. The 5th episode is where the emotional threads of Shiratorizawa start to form, now that the ideology and Tsuki's progression have been established. In the 5th episode, we get Shirabu's backstory, which counters who Kageyama is as a setter. So far in the series, Kageyama has talked at length at how important the setter is and how they control the flow of the game pretty much at all times. And this was played out in the Alba Josai match with Oikawa, as he controlled every part of the game for Alba Josai. For Shirabu, his playing style is the exact opposite, as he wants to blend into the crowd, being there to serve the ace, the best player on the court. Shirabu's playing style goes into the idea of wanting to be a part of something special, even if you aren't the face of that thing. Shirabu reminds me a lot of an editor, a thankless job, as some say. In your typical edit for a film, the edit shouldn't be noticed, and that is exactly what Shirabu is trying to do, to not be noticed. And that is a pretty easy thing to sympathize with. Shirabu is highly self-aware, and he wants to be a part of something great, even if it doesn't mean he gets as much recognition as he deserves. It fits so well because it contrasts so heavily with Kageyama and his style of play, where you can't help but notice just how strong of a setter he is. In between the third and fourth set, we get another moment of weakness for Ushijima, as he calls out Hinata for not having enough technique to back up his talk, which raises the tension between the two of them. This is also the episode where the difference in philosophies starts to become more explicit and add tension to the match. The match stretches to be more than just a game of volleyball, but a battle of what each individual person believes. Through the battle in the fourth set, and after all of Ushijima's dominance, we are reminded that the best team of 6 wins when Oikawa shows back up. This is not only a nice way to keep him in the story this season, but also makes the audience remember his philosophy and how that has shaped Karasuno. Then we get even more emotional buildup with the third-year players' flashback. For the current Karasuno team, and specifically all of the first years, they never really saw just how far Karasuno fell as a school. This is also shown through the old guy who always goes to their games and talks about how they have fallen. For Daiichi, Asahi, and Sugawara, they showed up to a school that was getting more and more comfortable with losing, which is a common thing when it comes to sports, with many franchises being stuck on the losing side because that is what they have become accustomed to doing. And it can be so difficult to get an entire organization or school to get out of a rut like that, which makes it so much more important for the third years to make good on their promise to their captain when they were first years, to seize the opportunity to make it to nationals. The rest of the episode and the fourth set ends up being a back and forth affair, going in a deuce with momentum swinging back and forth between both sides, showing how each philosophy is just as strong as the other, and in the end, Hinata is able to pull off a left-handed hit to recover from Kageyama's poor set, winning the fourth set for Karasuno. This moment is special in particular because Kageyama, who never makes mistakes, finally made one and gave Hinata a short set, but Hinata was able to make the most of it, even though he is so much shorter. That brings us to the start of the fifth set, where you can feel the anger rising up in Shiratorizawa and the nerves of Karasuno building since Kageyama starts the set on the bench due to fatigue. And at the start of the fifth set, we get a peek into the 2 best players for Shiratorizawa, Ushijima and Tendo. We see how each player's style of play directly correlates with who they are as a person and what happened to them in the past. For Tendo, he was bullied because of the way he looked and how he acted, but on the court he was able to become an amazing blocker and satisfy the need to shut down the people that tried to beat or bully him. For Ushijima, his goal to be a strong, dependable ace stems from the uncertainty that has come from the divorce of his parents. Ushijima hoped to be the steady rock for his teammates that he was missing in his own life. And you can see how that shapes how he views Hinata. Hinata represents chaos, while Ushijima is stability. And that is the main reason for the conflict between the two of them. After we get a peek into the backstory of Shiratorizawa's 2 best players, Karasuno has to deal with more adversity when Suki injures his hand and has to leave the game, creating a huge gap in the defense of Karasuno. After Suki leaves, Hinata tries to charge in again to steal momentum back, but is stuffed by Tendo. Just another reminder that Karasuno is going to be without their fantastic middle blocker. Shortly after Suki leaves the game, it becomes increasingly obvious that Kageyama is going to have to come back in, or Karasuno is doomed. As Hinata starts getting lucky and making reckless plays, Ushijima starts getting more and more irritated with him and demands the ball even more. Then we learn about the backstory of the coach for Shiratorizawa, Washijo, and why he only plays with strength and not using any other kind of tactics. We see how height was a deal breaker for Washijo, and because of that, he is unable to come to terms with a player like Hinata being able to fly in a way that he couldn't. This conflict becomes emotional at the end of the match when you can visibly see the coach getting excited to see a short player succeed, and at the same time regret that he wasn't able to do what Hinata does. Even when Kageyama is able to return to the court, Shiratorizawa keeps pulling away, and as the end of the 8th episode is filled with despair, that is turned into hope when Suki runs back into the gym. The emotions at the start of the 9th episode is truly the best testament to the level of storytelling in the series. Suki, at least for the first season, is by far the most unlikable character in the series, and even when we find out more about him in season 2, there is still a disconnect with his play and attitude versus everyone else on the team. And yet, by the 9th episode of season 3, I found myself cheering for Suki and getting emotional over what used to be by far my least favorite character in the show. And this is when we really get to see Suki mixing his technical skill and prowess with his passion for the game, making him invaluable for Karasuno. We also see camaraderie between Suki and Kageyama, even though they have always butted heads before, because now they are both showing the same level of passion for the game. And so we get the back and forth of the 5th set deuce and all of the intensity and philosophies of both teams on display as each team tries to steal the momentum. The episode builds to the cliffhanger of Hinata going up to hit the final spike for a potential game winner. The beginning of the 10th episode has the intensity dialed up to 11 with the long rally and increasing intense animation resulting in Ushijima crushing Karasuno as they try their best to lift one another up. This part of the match actually reminds me a lot of the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke. The fight ending with them barely being able to hit one another because of exhaustion in the exact same way that it plays out in the end of the 5th set, with each team praying that they can get a point so the match will finally be over. We see the physical exhaustion of the players on both sides, as eventually Karasuno has a chance to win the match. Then we get the brilliant shot of Hinata before he hits the last spike, with the camera movement making it feel like Hinata is flying. And Karasuno is able to take the win, not only getting to nationals, but as proof that their ideology can work and proof that Hinata can compete with the best of them, with Kageyama by his side. Every episode of this season has many moments where you doubt that Karasuno will be able to overcome the mountain that is Shiratorizawa. The storytelling here is airtight, with narrative momentum swinging back and forth, with layers of emotion and ideological depth to add to the drama. This match was a win for Karasuno and the little guy attitude that they have, trying to let every player on the court bring out the best strength of their team, but as Ushijima says, this is far from over. And that is what is so damn impressive about this season. The first half perfectly wraps up the last hanging character arc with Suki, while establishing many new characters and just how difficult this match is going to be. But at the end of it, it leaves the door open for each character to progress more in the future and not be stuck with their current ways. This season isn't supposed to be a conclusion, but offers up a midpoint to the characters and their goals, in a similar way that Suki's block is the mid-climax of the match. This match is the mid-climax of Haikyuu, closing the chapter on multiple character arcs and laying the groundwork for new ones to open. I don't think many people would disagree with the idea that the matches in Haikyuu and for many sports anime have the same weight and impact as traditional fights. Even though the action is based on a sport, it almost feels like life or death at times because of the intensity of the situation. And the third season of Haikyuu had the tall task of basically providing a 10-episode-long fight scene that had to carry the drama and character arcs throughout. The different ideologies seen throughout this match and season reach well outside of volleyball. Seeing these two opposing ideologies play out visually enforces how any ideology in the real world likely plays out, being a close and brutal match. The third season of Haikyuu offers up many contrasting ideologies between characters to emphasize the many ways we can go about approaching sports and life in general, showing how each ideology has its own merits. This season provides a tightly woven narrative with deeply emotional moments, great character development and progression, all to reveal a profound ideology. All of these aspects create maybe my favorite season in any anime ever.